Welcome to our March 2025 Maturity Model for Microsoft 365 Practitioners call. Today's topic is Maturity Model and AI Agents. And like I said, Simon Doy is going to take us through his thoughts on that. As you know, we have a core team, some of whom are here. I see Pia and Mats. I feel like there's a show here in the US called Romper Room, and she would hold up a mirror and say, I see you. You know, I see Mark, I see, and my sister, whose name is Siri, never was seen. Okay, so our agenda, I digress. Our agenda, we're going to just give you an overview of what the maturity model is, how we think about it, what the artifacts are in case you're a newer person to these calls. We'll do a picture or a little video just to show that we've got a great community here. We'll talk about how you can contribute, and then we'll jump into the main event, which is, like I said, Simon talking about AI agents. If you'd like to join us every month, pretty much every month, we don't meet during the summer and around the winter holidays, but you can download that recurring calendar series that'll put it onto your Outlook calendar or other calendar. And you can also follow us on Meetup. We have also post the meetings there if that's more helpful for you. I will do this one, and then I probably will stop talking. So what is the maturity model for Microsoft 365? Well, it's a set of thinking around how you can gauge what where your organization is from a maturity perspective based on a set of published competencies. That's that middle column, the purple blocks, which are the competencies which we've published so far. The purpose of this is to, like I said, help you sort of benchmark where you are and then plan where you'd like to be along any of these competencies that you think are important based on your strategic focus. So it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. It's not prescriptive. It's not a recipe. It's more of a framework that you can use to change your thinking or to help people in your organization change your thinking. The link at the bottom there, simpinfo.com or simp.info/mm4m365 will take you to the repo online in learn.microsoft.com that has all of these artifacts. And you can see we've got a number of different sort of slants on the
I think you muted yourself, Mark.
touch. I did not touch anything. Teams did that. So, you know, we have some how to elevate articles, which sort of help you think from, you know, I want to go from level 200 to level 300 for collaboration. What do I do? So we would encourage you to take a look at the artifacts that we've got in place. And if you have questions or thoughts or would like to contribute, we will talk about that in a second. Who would like to talk about this one? I'm happy to keep going. Is Simon here yet?
Mats or Pia, come on.
Yeah, quite.
What's that?
Mats or Pia?
We're putting our Swedish companions forwards for this.
It turns out I parked myself for some reason. Not intentionally, of course. So this is really about... I think there's some music.
Okej, nu spelas en radiostation bara för... Ja, visst. Här kom...
Mats, are you okay?
Not really, apparently, but okay, I'm here now. So, anyways, so we're progressing from a level of 100 towards a level of 500, where the first level 100, is really the normal reactive mode where nothing is really planned. There's no planning, there's no structure, there's nothing really, apart from a personal plan, perhaps, or a personal structure that you may have developed in your organization. And as we progress towards level 500, we get increasing level of structure and sort of a planned environment and a planned way of working with things. So at the level 500, the optimizing phase, that's where we're always constantly improving. We all want to ensure that all the key processes are working perfectly and things like that. So it's really a sort of a progression from level 100 to level 500. And if we're trying to become more mature, I think maybe level 500 is a bit much to sort of strive for. That's more like a pie in the sky goal to set. But rather you should try to improve as much as you can. And I think that if you're able to reach maybe like level 300, you're in a pretty good place. But even moving from 100 to 200 is could be a bit of a struggle. So.
All right. Simon Doy, you are the picture master.
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I am ready to go, yes. So let me organize my together mode. So we'll do that.
I'm going to stop sharing, I believe.
Yeah, I'll share my screen shortly once I've selected the together mode. My computer's on go slow now, of course, because it knows that everyone's here.
This is actually the hardest part of the entire session. Every time we're like, wait a minute. Okay, yep. Okay.
Yeah.
But now we
Like
want everyone to join for just a moment, with the video so we can see everyone, and then you can turn your video off again. And
turn on the camera, please.
Yes.
Yeah, you can show your friends and family all of the nice people you're hanging out with.
Yes.
Exactly. Right.
I see David Pileggi there, smiling his big smile.
Yay.
Right, everyone wave then. That's awesome. Lovely to see you all.
Right. Some of the other calls have more people, and we're not really very happy about that. More people who come on video, but that's okay.
We'll get there.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes,
all
but
right.
Our crowd is prettier, right? That's what they all say.
And smarter.
And smarter, yes.
All right, presenting in Teams again. And as soon as Teams gets there, I'm going to navigate to where we were, which I know there's probably some button for, but I don't know where it is. Okay, there we go. Simon Hudson, you're on the hook. Go.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a change. Okay, so this is what we're all about, really. So our purpose within these practitioner sessions is to give a safe and occasionally safely provocative opportunity for people to, discuss, challenge, offer suggestions, critique, all those good, positive things that we do with open source publications. So do feel free to push back or challenge or whatever you want to say about what we have to show you. We also give you an opportunity to get even more deeply involved. In fact, we positively encourage it, which is one of the reasons we now have Mats and Pia in the group, is they made the mistake of not hiding. And so we grabbed them and pulled them in, and they've provided great new insights into the way that we do the things within the maturity model. And so we encourage other people to join us with this. You can do it in a big way by being on screen, or you can do it in smaller ways by presenting a case study, commenting, contributing, or critiquing content that we've already published. We desperately need that because some of that content's quite old now and the upkeep is reasonably challenging. Socializing it, putting stuff out on the various social media platforms to say what value you get out of this, what you've done with it, what could be improved. Do it that way. That's also good. There's some other artifacts we've got. There's a link down there on how to run a maturity model workshop within your organization or your clients. And obviously last month we did this role play on also how that might go for you. Hopefully better than the one that we did. It was fun though.
Yes, and we have an amazing, I had to check the views. We had an amazing views on the last one. I think that our comic genius really came through.
We're going to have to workshop it a little bit more, maybe, before we take it to Broadway.
But it was fun and interesting.
It was fun.
So that's what we're all about in these meeting sessions. Next slide, please. Oh, I can do it myself, can't I? Even better.
You can't do it for everybody.
Yeah,
That's
I spotted the live thing. So we're in March. You probably noticed that. This month we've been working on some practical scenario stuff. So this is an extension of the competencies where we take a particular business need, a particular one, and we think about which competencies and maturity model characteristics apply to that. So this month, Simon's worked up a very interesting session on AI agents that I personally am looking forward to because I'm not using them enough. And then coming up next month, I'm going to take this stage. I did a bunch of work with the brand center within SharePoint with a client and some other exploration. So I'm going to do a practical scenario on branding in general. It'll use Brand Center, but I have all sorts of weird backgrounds, including doing some marketing and branding stuff. So I'm going to actually think about what branding really is and how we mature that within an organization. And then after that, come May, we're going to look at security, which is something we've been promising for about 3 years now. So yeah, it may come off.
I do want to point out that I'm the one who populates this list of people who come every month. We want to make sure we celebrate the fact that we've got so many people. I had to redo this slide to fit the number of people who were here the last time. That's never happened before. So I'm pretty happy about that. And the font's still pretty small. So we appreciate all of you come and hopefully get something out of this. We'd love to have you come more often. We actually just sent out a newsletter, which I don't think we have on any of these slides, but we have a new newsletter. I'm trying to work out some kinks about, why aren't people receiving it and things like that. But we sent one out. Oh, good. Pete got it. And we'd encourage you if you have been attending that you keep getting it so that you can stay on top of what we're doing. We want to try and build the community outside of these calls even more. So I just wanted to jump in and talk a little bit about the fact that our community is growing and we feel great about that. We're about 5 years in and we haven't done enough to get additional people involved. I will get the information about how to sign up for the newsletter into the chat when I stop talking.
Yeah, and also we have a brand new LinkedIn community group, which we also encourage people to come in and talk to, because not everyone is a GitHub expert to know how to do discussions and questions and issues and pull requests, but just wants to talk a little bit. So, and there will be in the newsletter as well links to it, so you can find it. Please join us.
Which I will put in chat. Oh, there it is.
Pete already did. Pete, you're now officially on the team. You've been working very well here.
Mike, we're going to skip this slide because we've talked about the fact that we're working on this for a little too much and we're not getting it done. So let's just forget about it. And now let's introduce Simon Doy to talk about maturity model and AI agents. He's put a lot of great thinking into this. I'm excited to hear what he has to say. Are you ready, Simon?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm going to take over. Right. If that's okay.
You got it.
Yeah, please, please sort of whoop and holler and raise your hand if you want to have a chat about anything. To be honest, it's been really good fun talking through this stuff with the team, and I've got some input into this, but the team have been inputting on the bits which I'm not so interested in, like governance and things like that, but apparently that's important. So yes, so a bit about me. I own a company called iThink 365, but mainly I'm sort of around the development solution architecture side, and sort of mission is to kind of drive customer success through people, process, and Microsoft 365. There's a couple of links there to LinkedIn and Blue Sky, so please feel free to connect, and if you have any questions, you can reach me there or through the other means which we've posted on GitHub as well. So let's get sort of set the scene. What's the purpose of this session? So really, the idea is just first of all introduce the idea of AI agents. Because we're the maturity model for M365, we are trying to be sort of agnostic a bit, so we're calling them AI agents rather than Copilot agents, but that's kind of what we mean. We wanted to kind of give people an idea of how you get started and some ideas around how you might use AI agents. And most importantly, we wanted to apply the maturity model to our thinking and the journey that you're going on for AI agents. So let's get into this. So what is an AI agent? So an AI agent, you kind of think of it as a sort of a junior member of your team. I mean, these AI agents are backed by large language models, and those large language models are very smart in some respects as well. But the idea of an agent is it becomes part of your team. You give them repetitive tasks to do for you so that you don't need to do them. They are powered by generative AI, so these LLMs like GPT-4, 5 and 4.0s, and Copilot agents are an example of AI agents. How they've evolved from Copilot, an agent, how it differs to a Copilot is a Copilot is something which is kind of supporting you as an individual. It's a sort of a personal productivity tool, and you're asking it to do things. Whereas agents are more, sort of more holistic. They are being part of the team. They can be triggered by external events, and so in our example, we'll talk about that. But it might be triggered by some event that's happened, an email coming into your sales mailbox, something like that. So they're not just triggered by you, and that's what makes them, I think, really interesting, because these agents can get started without your involvement. There are some things we have to think about on that, though. Some examples of some use cases. We'll talk about good old PanCom, which we've introduced over the last couple of sessions. So, go and research into an organization. So get an AI agent to go and research into a particular organization, for example, PanCom, and tell me about the following pieces of information. So, it might be who the executive board are, or what the number of employees, or the latest news about them, but using those agents to kind of go out and get that information and bring it back to you. Bid proposals is a big one as well. Help me pull together all the answers to these questions. So doing those repetitive tasks. Maybe it's monitoring social media and monitoring Facebook and saying, right, well, let me know if somebody's posted something negative, and then help me by giving me a suitable response, which I can then go back and validate and then send back onto Facebook. I think this is an interesting one. Maybe we're in a Microsoft Teams meeting and we're doing a sales call, a qualification call, maybe, or a discovery session. Help me. What have I missed? What questions have I not asked? So supporting somebody in a role. So there's some use cases. If we think about the maturity model and the levels, and how AI agents kind of might be being used at different levels. So that's sort of level 100, that default level, where we're just trying out a couple of ideas with agents. Maybe just within Copilot Chat or Copilot Studio. We're just trying things out. We're experimenting, but we're not using them in production. So that's kind of how we see level 100. Level 200, now, because we've sort of been experimenting with AI agents, we want to get more leadership buy-in. So we're now identifying use cases within the business, and this example with the sales team, and we're piloting a proof of concept. So we're still sort of playing, but we're actually getting these AI agents available to the business, and certain people in the business can start to use that. And then it's probably quite a big jump, but to level 300, where we've got guidelines on how we test and deliver AI agents. The day-to-day teams, maybe operations, pre-sales, sales teams are starting to use those agents in their day-to-day work. And while we're doing that, we're re-examining the AI landscape to see those other opportunities where AI agents could come into being used in our organization. From there, we've got that kind of base, and we'll go into that a bit more later. Level 400, we're now starting to measure our AI agents, we've got ways to get feedback from how the agents performed, and we've got some measurement. We can see, we've got a dashboard of what agents are available and how they're being used, and are they creating value. And then level 500, well, actually, what does that look like? Maybe it's a bit early to say, but the idea that AI agents are delivered across the whole organization, and they're supporting people and providing feedback for people, enhancing their job roles, their job performance. But we probably don't really know what that might look like yet. That's still evolving as AI is evolving. Okay. So if we move to an example, because I think I wanted to just kind of sort of give some thought about how a business process might bring in AI agents into that business process. So this example is a classic kind of sales lead process where a lead comes into a website. It gets assigned to a sales executive, and they do some research onto the lead, and they update CRM and sort of find out which industry that the lead is in, on how many employees and what their annual turnover is, that kind of thing. And then the sales executive will reach out to that lead, and over probably many cycles arrange a meeting. And eventually they arrange a meeting, and they do some qualification on the lead and see if it really is a real thing, and they'll update the CRM system with that summary of the meeting and what they found, and then qualify that lead. And if it's qualified, then it goes into kind of the next step, pre-sales, who then do their piece of work. But if it's not, then it finishes. So just a sort of basic example. And how do we turn that into starting to use an agent? Well, the first step, and Mark was sort of saying, well, how do people really get started? But maybe what we'd start to do is take that process of researching into the organization, into that lead, and do that first. And we might do that just by going into Copilot chat and starting to ask some questions about what is the information that we need about that business, and putting that in a prompt. So, please research into this organization, Pancom. Please get out the following pieces of information: number of employees, their address, their annual turnover, their profit, any news stories about them recently, and just sort of doing that in a manual process to kind of get that prompt right. And then the sales executive then reviews that research and updates CRM with that information. So kind of a still more of a co-pilot where the person is driving that process. That would then move into actually, right, well, now we're going to replace that that process and actually have an AI agent. So it might be that the lead comes into the website, comes into CRM system like Dynamics, and then we kick off our AI agent, which is being triggered to go and pull out the email address of the lead and find out who the company is, and then do that research, and then pass that information to the sales executive, who can then review that research and then approve or reject that research. And in the example of when it's approved, then the AI agent then writes that into the CRM system, or it shares the input with the sales executive. But if it's rejected, that's basically telling the AI agent, no, go and have another go and find that information again. And then the AI agent shares that information. Eventually it gets approved, and then the sales executive updates the CRM. And what I'm trying to highlight here is that importance of the human in the loop, that when we've got AI agents creating this content, it's AI generated, it might not be right. And so we need to have humans reviewing the content that's being created and making sure it's correct before it goes on to the next step. I will answer the questions you've got shortly in the chat. And so we can evolve that process, okay? So we might then take that on, we've got an AI agent doing the research, then we might then have an AI agent helping suggest times for that lead qualification meeting, and you kind of iterate that process through until eventually the AI agent is doing more and more of the repetitive, boring work. Okay, how mature do you need to be? How do you know that you're ready for AI agents? what is it that we need to do first, and ultimately what competencies in the maturity model are important to get you ready for your AI agent journey. And this is where, like, the team, we all sort of pulled together over the last sort of month, really. And these are the competencies which we pulled out. The cognitive business one is kind of like the obvious one, because it's around driving AI in the business. And actually it also then talks a lot about these other competencies which we mentioned below. But it really is, the drive for AI agent is everything that cognitive business is trying to achieve as it's moving people and bringing people and AI together and being used more and more often. And I've got a slide in the next one to go into that more. Governance, risk and compliance, and I've got a couple of resources at the end which I want to share, is really, really important, because we need to make sure that we've got things like an AI strategy in place. We're thinking about responsible AI and how we're building these agents. There's certain things which we need to do. We need to make sure that any content we're creating for building custom solutions are highlighting the fact that AI has created this content. We need to think about policies. Do we only allow people to access AI tools which the company is providing? What about how AI and the laws are coming in, whether there's AI related laws for the particular country that your organization is based in, or are things like the EU AI Act starting to, but they will have influence on how you design role. Now, one of the things is, how do we manage agent sprawl? I am sure over time that agents will become a little bit like SharePoint sites and team workspaces and sites where we get a proliferation of these agents. How do we manage the sprawl of that? And Pia was talking about, when we were talking, creating a dashboard so we can sort of track the agents and the usage. But also as well, what level of governance is required to manage the risk of these agents? Do we start off with internal AI agents where there's less risk because we're not facing the public, or do we start off with external AI agents? I'd probably suggest the internal one first, but what kind of risk are we happy to take? Staff and training, really important. Like, users need to understand how to use these agents, and then understand how to make them tick and work. And there's going to be end users and developers as well. Training that's required, and then also we need to talk about how AI agents, there's a fear of them taking over jobs, and so kind of setting that position of what they're there to do and not to do, and how they're looking to be used to assist and support the repetitive and boring tasks. And as I said before, developers need training as well. An essential part of this is management of content. We must, our agents, they're going to rely on good quality content. If they are accessing out of date information, or information which is in archive and is 10 years old, then that's the information that they're going to be giving users back. So we need to make sure that we're managing content. We are removing that old content out of the scope of agents. And so the management content is important. And we also need to make sure that content is secure and that people only have access to the content they should have. The business process competency is essential as well, as we've seen in the example, and we'll go into that a bit more. And then, annoyingly, this is off the page, but the customization and development piece as well is how are we going to test these. We need to do quite a lot of testing around these agents, like making sure there's this concept of jailbreaking where we get them to an agent to kind of give us a result which it shouldn't do. So there's some test strategies to think about that. Yes, we definitely need an agent to help identify outdated information. I agree. So how do organizations deliver these solutions? And we'll go into that a bit more. Team, anybody wanted to pipe in? Any thoughts on this? Anything I've missed out?
I would love to pipe in. I
for
always
it.
love to pipe in. But well, when it comes to this technology, it really touches on everything, because there are some questions now in the chat about, what drives consumption and costs. And I saw a video the other day. I'm going to try to find it and put it in there. Would actually discuss that you can do certain things in agents that will be free if you use the web version and other things. And Microsoft are still, trying to figure this licensing and how to charge for this. But I think we have to be more in the mind space of the Copilot is like Azure. Right? Like, it is a pay as you go. It is something that we just have to try to control and factor in. And that's also why it's so important to have this technology jumping into the other competencies, because we with the governance and risk, okay, are we leaking information? Are we pulling the information from the right place? Is this reliable? And staff and training, obviously, we can't create all these agents to do amazing things if our people really trust it. They think that it's not a junior player. I'm gonna, just believe everything that is in here and not be, mindful is that no, they make mistakes. You are the one sending it. Mats, you wanna chime in as well here?
Yeah, I wanted to chime in with. If we're talking about agent sprawl, we also have to take into account that all of those agents and all copilots in general, I think, is also going to accelerate the amount of new documents and new content that we have in our Microsoft 365 tenants. So that's also something to take into account.
Yeah. We are amazingly great at creating content today, and very, very bad at deleting it. And also, I want to, that comes in with the management and content, but also in the business process, when you do the agents, start with something that is already documented and well performed, that we know, okay, in the sales process, this is how we look at a prospect. We get all of this data. We evaluate on these different things, and this is the next step. So when we try to use these agents in a real world scenario, build on what you got, okay? Build on what you already know, and it will be useful, because if you're just playing around with it, it's not really going to be that useful for the business. And also with a customization, we need to have a lot more people learning how to code and do these things. They're awesome. Terrence, you have your hand up. Oh, and also David after that.
I think the consumption-based charging model is really good, and in a weird way, I hope it stays really expensive, because organizations should think about whether they should actually use AI to solve a particular business problem. I saw something on LinkedIn a few months ago where somebody had made this monstrous prompt. There's actually 4 prompts in one, and I won't go through all the detail, but it's basically grab some data, put it in a temporary table, look up some postcodes, look up some Google Maps data, Bing Maps data, and then plot an itinerary for a mobile service delivery. But the fact that they were doing this with a prompt, and you would rerun that prompt every time you needed to generate a new schedule, to me just looked like a monstrous waste of computing power and all of the environmental impact that has, where you could probably code a fairly elegant app and probably should, instead of getting Copilot or an agent to have an AI reasoning over that business problem every single time you run it, and just wasting computing resources and wasting energy. So I think it needs to be expensive enough to discourage people from just, I want to say being lazy. It's not exactly what I mean, but yeah, I just think we should, just as much as we're thinking of all the cool things we could do, we should also take a step back and think about things we maybe shouldn't do with it.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah. That's very good.
Yeah,
points.
I agree. I put in a link to Digital Cleanup Day And they actually took a look at, I think they did a lot of work this year about AI and how much it actually costs. When I started, in this business, it'd be like, oh, I'm an environmental hero because I work digitally. And no, if you always look on YouTube with the highest level and have 5 things running at once, it's like, no, I'm an environmental, villain again. Damn it. Gatekeep agents. Yes, let's. Only
David.
smart people with a vision.
David, do you want to go next?
Roger that. So one of the things that I definitely think is going to be interesting for this group as far as the maturity model is concerned around agents is the personal agents that you can create in a document library, because it creates a file within that document library. Yes, it's locked down to literally only that individual, but Microsoft has a phenomenal habit of orphaning things very quickly when there's, like, for example, a termination. Yeah, I know, Pia. I'm the outlier. I get it, but one of the things that we're going to have to, think about is working probably with Microsoft is how these agents are going to butt up all over the place. I don't think it's going to be a problem as of right now because, let's face it, AI is still shiny and new. Copilot has been out for those who purchased in so let's say a year and a half, almost 2 years. The agents are somewhat more new in the way things are. The long and the short of it is those are going to, over time, as people start to get more comfortable with it, just like anything else. Back in the day, Mark can probably chime in on this as well. When SharePoint was first introduced, people were lucky to actually use the same behaviors and use SharePoint. Rename a document to important document, star, January, star, and then important document, final.
And I love when you found that folder says do not use, and then under that you had the new project that everyone was working with. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So apparently you and I have the same users.
Yes.
But the long and the short of it is, I definitely think there's going to need to be a drive to find a way to not have digital sprawl at the end of the day.
Simon
Yes.
Doyle, do you want to jump back in here? I'm worried we're going to
Yes.
take up all your time. This is great discussion.
Let's go.
God.
We'll go.
Go.
So next, let's sort of delve into each of the competencies. So the cognitive business. So this was the bit that I really want to get across, which was, the cognitive business was talking about how there's that transition from people doing everything and then people starting to bring AI into their day-to-day routines, and eventually, the sort of, I guess, the panacea of AI agents is that people and AI are working together as a team to get stuff done and make a difference. But also on the back of this, then is building that awareness of AI and that responsible AI. I know we hear it being talked about more and more, but it's how do we know that the AI has created the content? It's really important because of that that human in the loop, being able to know whether that information is reliable. My wife's a doctor, and she was sort of saying they're starting to use AI and talk about AI in a clinical sense. And when these AI models get so smart that they're coming up with things where we might not, as experts, still understand what it is they've come up with. Being able to know that the AI has created that content, so we may spend more time trying to understand what it's saying to make sure that it's correct. It might be needed. So, so that's the first one is the cognitive business. The next one then is around governance, risk, and compliance, and we've sort of delved into earlier, but yeah, fundamentally the start, having that AI strategy about how, what tools we're going to use, what coming up with where this information is going to be used, putting policies around what AI tools people can use, whether it's just ones which the organisation is providing, which is normally the way, which ones we aren't going to use, and then thinking about that responsible AI piece, about how we make sure that people know when they're building tools, they're using tools, that they're marking things that AI is generating it, that we're putting sort of test harnesses and processes around building these tools as well, that we've got a team that is part of the role of, before we release anything, is testing to make sure that the AI is behaving in the way that we'd expect. Coming again to the management of agents, then make sure we've got some sort of dashboard that we can start to track and find out where those agents that agent sprawl is happening. Yeah, and then again, come back to the risk appetite. Do we just only concentrate on internal agents? It's just for internal use only at the start. Do we think about external agents? There was a podcast, Copilot Connection, and they were talking about in it that there seems to be less and less external chatbots at the moment, because there's more risk to them, so people are worried about them, particularly when you get high-profile cases like Canadian Airlines having to honour cheap flights. So yeah, but thinking about that risk appetite. Team, please feel free to chime in if there's anything else which you'd like to add in here on these competencies. Moving on to the next one. Then, I've missed the thing. So this is continuing the governance, risk and compliance. So I forgot to split this into two. So thinking about what content can agents access. So there'll be certain highly confidential content which we probably don't want the agents to be able to reason over at all. Maybe we can put some policies around that and protect that. What about the reporting, and how are we going to report on and get feedback? Maybe we put a feedback loop into the agent so that at the end of it answering and helping, it's asking the user to provide feedback and a score so we can measure that. Maybe that agent, if it can't answer a question, it's got a process there to say, I'm sorry, I can't answer this. What is it that you were looking for? And then we can then feed that back to the team that built the agent so that they can improve it. What about how we secure these agents, the data they've got, and test them? What's the process going through those as well?
Yeah, and I would like to say something about the testing, because most of the times when we do something in the Microsoft 365 space, it's like we'll run with things and we see when it breaks and when it becomes an issue, when it becomes a sprawl. Now with AI agents, if we configure them and do a lot of fancy stuff with it, we need to treat them like regular DevOps, because if you build in a process, a core process of your business into an agent, and even if it's only internal, if something changes from Microsoft, you need to quickly go in and notice it and change it. And so you have to work with it, not as we do with maybe like Microsoft 365 admins, but we have to think like DevOps. We really need to try to get back to that whole different environments. Like, now, wouldn't it be great, to have a test environment for your Microsoft 365? Like, there is no way today we can just like export all of our settings to a test environment and see how it runs there. But we need to think about the AI agents like that, because if it breaks, it could cost us a lot of money, because you can maybe not go around these agents like we used to. So we need to pull back and think like real developers when we're working with AI agents.
Yeah. An example of that would be you can sort of have settings that AI agents automatically update to the latest version of that model, and so maybe that's something which you don't do, because that's going to introduce change which you're not in control of. So yeah, it's a great point. Okay, how are we doing for time? Okay, we're good. So staff and training. always really, really important, and more so within, also important in any technology or any new thing you're trying to introduce into a business, but really important with AI. And it's just, that setting the scene of the role of agents in the modern workplace, because that's going to be the thing which starts to get people thinking about how these agents can be used in their day-to-day activities. And then educating people on how they can understand how they can use generative AI and write prompts and use them, so that, again, they can identify those opportunities about and be able to do things, be able to do things in their work which is more valuable. The one thing where I do think AI agents, everyone talks about saving time as being a thing, but actually just being able to step back and have more time to think and have time to be creative, that's really where a huge amount of value can come through to an organization, just not being just in the weeds all the time. So that side, and then developer training is so important, that the developers understand how to build these agents and use these and put the plumbing together so that you can use your Copilot agents with business systems and etc. Cool. Coming back to management of content, and it's a bit more thinking here, making sure that the data is clean. It's essential for AI agent performance. We've got sort of small scope. Someone talked about the idea of agents being like applications. I totally agree. An agent has got a sort of fixed purpose, and it's very good at that purpose. That's where you get value out of an agent. Making sure that we're archiving out-of-date documents and getting them out of the scope of the AI agent, unless that AI agent needs to access that archive data, of course, but taking it out of the scope so it doesn't kind of pollute its reasoning. Thinking about data retention policies to help that archive process. Thinking about the security, we've got some great guidance on how to structure your workspaces so that you can have areas for public consumption and internal team consumption. So protecting your organization from oversharing. And then come back to the business process. Mark was sort of talk about this. It's like, well, where do you start? You do need to have that process. And it needs to be documented. It doesn't have to be digital, but ideally it's digital. So you're taking that digital process and evolving it and introducing those AI agents to help build out those repetitive tasks, as we showed an example. But then don't forget about that human in the loop. We need to make sure that the person is validating the content in the same way that you would have your junior team member might do some work for you. You're going to do some checks and quality. I mean, my team always checking my proposals for my awful English. So yeah. And then this was the last competency. I mean, if you want to go back, we can. But customization and development. As someone already mentioned, should you build it? I mean, the rate of AI change is incredible, and I think sometimes we need to sit back and go, well, actually, should we build this, or is it that the AI capability is just going to mean that whatever we build is just going to be obsolete within the next week? Thinking about the good development practices around building these, and like I say, making sure that we're marking content that we're creating that's been generated by AI, as Microsoft are doing with their Copilot Studio agents. Come back to using DevOps as well to make sure that we have different environments and we're moving the code from a development test into production, so we're not introducing changes which are untested in production systems. And thinking about extensibility hooks, how can we really drive value from agents? Well, agents need to be able to talk to systems and do things, so we need those hooks for those agents to be able to be able to use. And absolutely, Mark, being responsible within your organization, again in that Copilot connection session, there was talk about building an agent which was profiling people and looking for whether somebody would be a
Psychopath?
Yeah, well, actually, just being a good person with that organization, a psychopath. There's certain things which we shouldn't be using AI to do, and where especially is something that's going to have extreme bias against particular types of people. So we need to think about that. Using where should we use AI and where should we not use AI.
I just got a warning for using that word. It says, give me a little sign that it could be a bad word. So Teams AI has me on a watch list now.
And those, think about that extensibility. Think about APIs. APIs are described by an OpenAI specification. This is what Microsoft are sort of really pushing to help us to be able to create agents which can consume those APIs, because those APIs, they need to be described. We need to understand what the information that's in them, what the properties are of those objects. If it's an opportunity, a sales opportunity, that's got an account, it's got a salesperson who's leading that, it's got a probability, it's got a description of what it is they're looking for. Being able to understand what those fields are, so that the AI can then reason over that and make clever decisions on that. And then how do we move solutions from those different environments, from dev, test to user acceptance testing environment into production? It's really important, and that actually has then reduces the burden on the development team as well, because they don't have to remember how to do that. The DevOps and the systems are doing that for them. And then coming back to that responsibility AI, how do we test? Do we have a set of prompts which we use for all our AI to try and understand and pull out those use cases which the AI agent exposes something where it shouldn't be? So that red teaming process. Any comments, Mark? Did you want to sort of highlight your responsible AI within your organization? Did you ever?
Well, you had it on your list. I just hadn't seen it, so I was just thinking that one of the things that we often see is that IT departments think other people need to have governance, other people need to have responsible AI. We look to our vendors to handle that part, and I would say that it's our responsibility with any technology to be responsible, informative. Don't just dump it on people and not inform them of what it's doing. So I think this is no different than any other technology advance, and it is a very big one. And you need to treat your users with, the respect and privacy and all that stuff that they deserve in any other way.
Thanks, Mark. Absolutely. And so, if no one has got anything else, then the next one is then just some resources. And we've got some resources, very Microsoft centric resources around, introducing Microsoft Copilot Actions, so those elements of this new agent world. We also talk about the Copilot Studio Agent Builder in there, and then kind of moving out of the Copilot space more into the Azure. Then there's some links there to the Azure AI Agent Service, which was launched at Ignite. And the last one then was talking about responsible AI with Chris on the Copilot Connection podcast, and it's a really worth a listen on that.
Yeah, and we have a really good question here from Sean. Are we covering both OpenAI and Copilot agents? And I think we need to remember that Microsoft owns a lot of OpenAI, and now when you do things, well, not today with Copilot, but with the AI Foundry and other things, we can pull in other models. So we need to be conscious about all of these things for everything AI, even though we're, thwarted towards, Microsoft AI when we do these kind of talks. But I think that everyone in this digital room probably are well aware of other models and use other models as well.
Yeah, and I guess we're trying to be agnostic. It's more about the thinking around AI agents in general, but we're trying to we're trying to cover all agents and sort of more of a general thinking and things we need to do. Yeah, I mean, just to answer that question, then yeah, I use the knowledge within generally within SharePoint. I'm using knowledge held in SharePoint and saying, right, it's these particular document libraries or this particular site. You just need to make sure you get your security set up correctly so that the agent can access that information. Yeah. So have I missed anything? Have I any competencies which we think? Well, why didn't they mention that competency or anything which people wanted to?
Well, give it 5 minutes, and we will need to have 50 more competencies, and then in the next 50 minutes we will need one.
Well, the great thing now is that we have a LinkedIn group where people can discuss after the session, which we haven't had before. So I'm going to find that link and put it into the chat, though I'm sure Pia has it handy.
Peter already did that for us.
Well, I know, but you can put it in there again. I'm not sure we have it on the next couple of slides, and we should. We don't.
Of course.
Sean is asking, sorry, Terence, actually. Let's do Terence, you go first because you've got your hand up, and I'll answer Sean's message in the chat. Terence, go for it.
No worries. I'm actually just looking back for this. I think it's slide 22. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be a separate competency, but just something which, unless I missed it when you were talking through, but a way to emphasize the importance on having some kind of organizational vision for AI, where leadership is instrumental in defining AI policy. You've got executive sponsorship, and there's also been some thought put into what does responsible AI look like. So it kind of fits into the governance, risk, and compliance piece, but those governance, risk, and compliance is often delegated to down-level compliance people, and it's often around the execution and enforcement of the policy, and not necessarily how those policies are arrived at. And one of the things I really see a lot with customers that I work with, and I'm doing a lot of the kind of Microsoft-funded workshops for co-pilots, is people struggling with what does AI mean for our organization, and the fear around being replaced, and the opportunity that leadership has to stand for something and to say, we will not replace people with AI for the time being, kind of, because practically speaking, I think it's be quite rare that an organization won't end up economizing on headcount at some stage in the future. But there just seems to be a vacuum of leadership around AI, and it's left to IT to kind of muddle through. So I don't know where you would fit it in, or whether it needs its own line, but just that leadership piece.
Yeah, I think we did talk about having a competency, a strategy competency, didn't we?
We did, yes. We haven't done that, but nevertheless, some of this strategy element does exist in one of these competencies.
Okay. So
we, with the particular concerns that relate to AI, concerns and advantages and strategies, we've covered that in the AI and cognitive business competency explicitly. Now, it could probably be beefed up based on the comments you've made, Terence. So, if you've got anything, if you'd be kind enough to have a look at the competency, I've dropped the link in, and tell us what you think we should have addressed as opposed to what we have covered, and I'll use that as an opportunity to update the competency accordingly.
Will do. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's really great insight. So I think that's really good. And that's what this is all about, isn't it? This session is about sharing those ideas. So thank you for sharing. Right, I think we're coming up to the end of the session, and I've just about run out of things to talk about now.
Well, then we must be done.
Well, I've got a question, Simon. Are you going to turn this into a published practical scenario for us?
Yeah, Mark has asked us to do the same. So yes, absolutely, and we will do. Yeah, absolutely. But yes, I think the main thing is come and we look forward to seeing you next month. And thank you for everyone for coming and listening to our ramblings. So when are we back?
Thank you.
April 15th. Simon Hudson, branding. So look forward to you and look forward to seeing you on the LinkedIn group.
And that practical scenario is published, so you can read it in advance if you'd like to.
Do you have a link
Good.
for that? We'll
give
put
me
that link
20
in the
seconds.
chat. Yeah, it'll be in the chat in a minute. But it's in the artifacts if you go visit. Thanks everybody for joining. Thank you, Simon. That was great. Really appreciate your insights here, and we had a very healthy discussion in the chat. So let's make sure that we continue that discussion in our LinkedIn group, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Yes,
right here.
And I will approve everyone coming in. We just try to keep the bots out, so it's not we're going to do an AI check on you people for not being, bad people. We just want to keep the bots out. But yes, great session, everyone, and great discussions in the chat. And see you next month, right?
Cheers all. Take care. See you next month.